Hi, I'm Mandy Fisher, and you're listening to another VO podcast.
Hey, welcome back. You have found us once again, the Gang of Four on another VO podcast.
The Gang of Four, yes.
The Gang of Four. How's it going, fellas?
I can't be in this if this is going to be a gang. My mom said no gangs, and I don't really want to deal with that. Let's how about like a squad or like a...
The posse.
Dude, we could call it... We could call our podcast one day, we call it like the Game of Microphones. Oh.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't want to be in a gang. Yeah.
Goodness.
Slow.
Yeah, it's like The Price is Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I like that.
Anyway.
That's the sound of summer for me. I remember as a kid.
Yeah. Speaking of summer, we haven't had the humidity here yet, but I got a feeling any day now it's going to set in, and that crap's here till September.
Yep.
You guys haven't got hit hard yet in Texas?
There's been a couple days it's been humid, but it's not every day yet.
This is like an unseasonably cool and
It's
rainy,
not summer yet,
wet
though.
spring.
It's been awesome. Yeah. It's
This
been awesome.
reminds me of the spring and back in 21 when I first moved into this house that I'm in now. I mean, it rained all the time.
Hey, if nature's going to provide the water and I don't have to pay to water the grass, awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and all
that's
my
great.
vegetables and the garden in the back's blowing up, but I'm mowing like
Crazy.
3 times a week.
Sheesh, yeah.
Oh, you guys mow?
Yeah.
I got a kid for that.
Oh, you have.
Oh, okay. I was like, dang, what, your yard full of rocks or what?
Like
That's how they are. That's how they are in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Yard full of rocks.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
No, yesterday I played in a disc golf tournament yesterday afternoon. And, man, I sweated so much and just got bombarded with mosquitoes.
Yep.
How'd you do?
Yeah.
Tournament-wise?
I did fair. I'd never played this course before.
Sure.
And it's a pro level course.
Nice.
It's part of the what used to be called the Silver Series Tour for pros. And
Yeah.
so it's a tough course. It's over 8,000 feet total when, most locals are 5,500 to 6,000 kind of.
Couple of par 4s and 5s?
I want to say 4 or 5 par 5s. And
Wow.
the longest hole I played was 950-ish feet.
Was that a par 5?
Not quite
Well, it had to have
1,000.
been,
it was
I
a par
guess.
5. Yeah, it was a par 5.
Well, because I've seen...
And
I've
I
seen-
parred it.
Nice.
I parred it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Even after hitting a tree, I was really matriculating the disc down the field. As
Trees
they say.
mess up some of the best throws I've ever had.
But yeah, the cicadas were so loud. We've got the big, like the 17-year or 13-year, one of those rare cicadas that come out only so often. I walked through one.
Instead of they're like, hey. Yeah, it's crazy.
Exactly.
It's weird, man.
Yes, they need to turn down the gain on their, microphones. But
sure.
I walked through this area. It was like Swiss cheese because those cicadas come up through the ground and they leave a hole right where they come up when they, wake up. Swiss cheese, just like us.
We never had any here, and you could go 15 miles south, and it was awful. But
really?
None here. And my mom told me, I went down to see her over the weekend, and she said that it was like Friday. It was like you cut the switch off. They just stopped. So she was really glad because it was driving her up a wall. But
her up at night.
yeah,
Did you know
we
that
didn't have 'em.
cicadas make different noises in different countries?
I have heard that.
Well, yeah, sure.
I mean, they all speak different languages. Why is that a big surprise?
Yeah, you're like, oh, that one's speaking Japanese. No,
They're different
because
cicadas.
I didn't know that, and I remember hearing cicadas a lot when I was a kid in the summer. Because every summer vacation, when I was a kid, we'd go over to Korea, and my grandma lived like 10 miles off the dirt road, right? Like she was way at like the base of a mountain and stuff. So I was always running around up there, and I was telling somebody, I was like, yeah, cicadas, that classic, and they're like, what is that? And I was like, that's the sound cicadas make. And they're like, that's weird. And I was like, what? And then like we looked it up, and it's like, oh, like the ones in Illinois sound like this. They have this call, and this call. And I was like, sorry about my random thoughts coming out.
Oh, it's true. I mean, you're right. I mean,
for everybody that's listening.
cicadas have
Speaking
different.
of,
Listen,
welcome to another
the
Insect
cicadas
podcast.
clients have different voiceover demands.
That's true,
depending on
yeah.
which one they're hiring.
Nice
speaking-
segue.
And
Yeah,
speaking
thank you.
of
Thank
making
you.
whining noises on your microphone, let's talk how your attitude can affect your business. Even from first, let's look at it from the aspect of being in a slump, and you sit down to audition. What happens?
If you're desperate, you're going to sound desperate. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've mentioned something like that before, and I know we've talked about it often. In fact, I
does.
think we were talking about it the other day. After I had actually just booked a gig recently, my third agency gig this year, and I was telling the
Nice.
guys, ever since I got that, that's not what I'm talking about, Charles.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thought
let
I'd
me-
give you some recognition. Just trying
Hey,
to be
I
a friend.
appreciate it, but I'm
Right.
you
Thanks,
know
folks.
what? Anyway,
Have a good
yeah,
podcast, though.
yeah. Thank you, Charles. That was Charles' voice, everybody. No, anyway, we were talking about the other day because I just booked my third agency gig of the year after never booking an agency gig except one other time in the fall of last year. I've had agents pretty much for the last 3 years, and and this year alone booked 3 agency gigs, and all with different agents. And I was telling the guys, ever since I got that job, that pressure's been taken off of me. And when I go do an audition, it's like, sure, I want to get it. But at the same time, it's like, well, if I don't, I'm not worried about it, whereas before it's like, man, I hope I get something just to keep me afloat. And when you're, and I think after I said that, Troy, you were like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So attitude 100% affects your auditions. And
Yeah.
like we were just saying, if you are in there and you are like hoping you're trying to make this a living and this is all you do, you are kind of desperate. So you got to be able to either reel it in or just like kind of conquer that part in your brain that's like turn off the desperation or whatever. But again, in turn, you could be having a bad day and come in here and they want upbeat, bright, and whatever, and you're in there and you're just not up for that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Right, very true.
Well, think about psychologically what attracts you to friendships. People like, man, that dude is so cool. I really want to hang out with that guy.
Right.
Typically, it's
like
because
Charles.
there's somebody that doesn't really care what other people think, right?
Right.
If it's somebody that like is always walking on eggshells, like, I hope I'm saying something that you approve of. I mean, nobody wants to hang around that.
Right.
So when you're desperate for work, people can smell it,
Oh, yeah.
Because
Through the microphone.
The microphone can smell it. Didn't know your microphone could smell, but they hear that in your voice that you're thinking while you're performing, man, I hope they like this. Man, I hope they like this. Am I doing this well enough? And that's just not what is going to sell. That's not what the client.
Let's
is buying.
say that it's not an attitude thing, and you've hit one of these slumps, and of course it can become an attitude thing. But one of the things that I've thought about this past couple of weeks was, when was the last time I coached? When was the last time I went to a workshop? And you can lose your edge. You can lose your habits. And that's one thing, because if you were in a really good habit, you've been coaching with somebody and you're now in this really good habit of how you're breaking down, analyzing, going into your copy and then doing the audition. And then you just not really realize that now I'm getting in a hurry because I need to get more in because I'm not booking and I'm doing this. And you can just get out of routine, I think.
Or you think you're good enough now because you've had that coaching, and now you're like, okay, I don't have to
Maybe a
do
little too cocky.
step A, B, C, D anymore. I could just I could just look at it real quick and jump in and record. And then
there's so
there it is,
so
your
much.
Performance is off.
Yeah, look how many things can affect your audition and your ability that day. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've been out. You go outside to do something because it's slow, and you think, I'll come back in this afternoon and do some auditions. And when you go out to do that, something not catastrophic, but something happens that throws your mood off. But you got to come back in and audition. Just like if you're out there, maybe you're mowing and you run over a garden hose and chop up a $40 garden hose. Not that I've ever done that.
Yeah,
more
ever.
than
That was oddly
twice.
specific, Troy.
Yeah. Price, color.
Did I
where
miss
it was
why
in the
you would
yard
chop up a hose?
Well,
with a lawnmower.
because
pick it up.
because
you run over it
somebody
with a lawnmower.
Yeah,
Got you.
somebody
okay, I just pictured
was-
Troy going over there just taking out his aggression on a hose, just like
No.
3 feet at a time. Yeah.
No. But somebody left it in the yard, I'm sure. I don't. I would never have done that. But, or, you got to cut the back where the dogs are and it's under the thick grass and you never see it. How'd that get there? I don't know. But
Never
anything
happened
like
to
that
you,
can
huh?
happen. No, never. Anything like that can happen though. And you could be in an interaction with somebody. Like we come out of these groups. We're usually coming out of a podcast in pretty good mood. Right?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
you
Except for
know
that
that's a
one
good
episode,
time.
but-
Yeah, that's right. And that's always a good time. So what can you do? What do you guys try to do if you're in that psyche? Maybe you're a little down. What do you try to do to get back in the game?
Well, I got to tell you, even before I knew I was getting this job that I did just get, because I found out in April of the job, and then I ended up getting it just before the end of the month. So, but even before then, I don't know why I started this year off really good anyway, and I just had a feeling that everything was going to be all right. So I know that's not like the best advice. Like, just know everything's going to be okay, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
No, but I think it is about trusting the process, and trusting yourself, and trusting that you're going to either, one, do the right thing if you need to, as in if this isn't working, you know what you need to do to get yourself back on your feet. And I'm not saying give up this. I'm just saying sometimes you got to make that decision to take care of yourself and your family. So trust that you will do that when the time is ready, if the time comes. But also trust in yourself and trust in your abilities. If you are giving your best, if you're doing your best, if you're doing X amount of marketing and try within your goals. Don't compare yourself to anybody else, first of all. But if you're doing your best within within the goals that you've set for yourself, just trust in that. And I know it's tough, especially when you do get in slumps. And I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I've been in so many slumps throughout voiceover where I've gotten so down on myself. But the second things turn around and pick up, I immediately, that switch flips and I'm ready to get back into it. And then something good will happen. But then how long does that wave last? We never know. I mean, unless you're Chuck Booker over here, I mean, the wave will crash, eventually. And,
Different for everybody.
It is different for everybody. And look at the four of us for sure. I mean, we all go through waves of booking, unless you're Charles, he's just booking all the time. So, I mean, I know he's sick of hearing that, but it's a perfect example. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, we all book, but every week Charles is in there.
Not like
Chuck.
Booker
Not
T.
like Chuck.
Coates.
and I'll tell you, I mean, like, it's great to see him succeed, but you also want to be able to tell the guys that you book something. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
And when you don't, but you're still seeing one or two others doing that, it's disheartening.
It can get frustrating. Yeah.
But we're all different too. We're not all booking the same jobs. You know what I mean? Like, we're all booking different jobs, and you just
Different genres.
You got to trust in your process. And once you can trust yourself and have confidence that you will do the right thing, should you need to.
Yeah.
I really
I'll
think
echo that. Some
Yeah.
of that's. I think there's long-term and short-term answers to that question.
Sure.
You need to do the long-term things, like Jake is saying, to provide for your family, to make sure that you don't have those worries that weigh heavy on your chest, so that you can be free in emotion and spirit to dive right into your acting and your auditions and stuff. But also in the short term, it's called acting.
Yep.
Yeah.
You've got to put yourself in the place, the mental imagery, in the conversation that you'd be having if this script were your life. How would that sound? How would you act? And just let everything else go for that 10 minutes that you're, working on that script or whatever. Or, if it's an audition, you want to get through those pretty quickly. But it's still called acting.
Yeah.
I think
I had to come to terms with that, because in my brain, I'm like, I'm not an actor. I'm not gonna be an actor. I'm just gonna do voiceover. I was corrected on that, and it took a while. Had to pierce through my pride a little bit.
I think another spinoff of long-term, short-term, kind of like you're talking about, is if you're afraid that I need to make this much money this month. So you have no plan and you just start scrambling, right? You're just splashing water. You're not making any movement, right? You're just spinning your tires because you have this big goal, this big money amount or big something that's like this BHAG, right? That's just like sitting on your head. And it's like, well, how about I start with, you know what? step away for a second. I'm going to go play Frisbee golf. I'm going to get my mind right. I'm going to get some fresh air. I'm going to go out into the back and mess with the garden and hunt for caterpillars that are eating my tomato plants. Whatever it is, right?
I'm going to remember that it's called disc golf and not Frisbee golf.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, come on.
Sorry,
I
keep
knew
going.
that was
And the
coming.
caterpillars are
Spokane,
called
not
tomato hornworms.
Spokane. I'm sorry.
Nevada or Nevada?
And you
Nevada.
know what I mean? And so, you need to make sure everything is good from the ground up, right? Do those little things to kind of get yourself right for the moment. Mm-hmm. And then when you start doing those things correctly and you start making sure that your mind and your stress and whatever is kind of, it's still there, right? But make sure you're good for that hour. You're good for that time that you're going to do your auditions, right? Make yourself ready for that. Instead of with this scare, this big monster behind you that's like, oh my God, I need to pay my bills this month. I need to get 10 bookings. I need to make this much money or I'm going to, and you just work yourself up into a frazzle.
Yeah.
And then when you're worked up in a frazzle and you're trying to do all these auditions, it's looking more and more hopeless because you're not even getting shortlisted and nothing's happening. So you're getting more freaked out. And then it's just it's just like this mountain that's sliding down on top of you.
Yeah.
So,
and it comes out. I mean, it all comes out.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
And I think people too get frustrated on how long it's taking. We got I shared an email with you guys yesterday on a guy that had his first couple of $2,000 months, and he was talking about that. And, hoping it would do that and grow faster and grow faster. And I just heard, I don't remember which episode it was, and I won't be right on the dollar figures, but Emma O'Neill was talking about when she started, and she said, that first year, these numbers won't be right, but it's close. I made $5,000. Well, then I doubled it. In the second year, I made $10,000. And then I was a little over double the third year and made like $25,000. But when she gets to year 5, it's like you're up in the 200-300K mark, and that has to do with a process. And that's what Jake mentioned earlier. There is a process for all of this. Are there, as we talked about a long time ago, are there exceptions? Of course there are exceptions. There
and those are the ones you really don't want to emulate because
you can't.
You're pretty much guaranteed not to follow in their footsteps.
Right.
Yeah. It's
but
that isn't repeatable all the time.
Right. Their particular set of circumstances, their skill,
The
their
timing of
connections,
whatever.
the timing
Exactly.
is all different.
Exactly.
Right.
But this not standard, but this 5-year or so timeline that we hear about a lot is fairly typical. It's not the only one. There are people who do things quicker or people who probably do it a little slower. But there's a lot of people who after year 5, somewhere between year 5 and year 7 and whatever, they kind of take off. There's a reason they take off. They've learned the business. They've had all their coaching. They've got out better demos. They went from small agents to big agents. They're marketing. They're doing everything we preach.
Exactly. And you got to realize, too, when you're doing marketing, you're not trying to get a job from that person right away. I mean, if they have one for you, I'm not saying turn it down.
Oh, yeah, great. Bonus.
But bonus. But you're
bonus.
just trying to establish that, and you're trying to plant a seed. And how many seeds have you guys planted where you plant it and then 2 minutes later it's already sprouting something? Does it like that exist?
One or two.
It happens.
I mean, it's
Hardly
super
ever.
rare. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, shut up, Charles. Yeah, you don't count. You
Charles
book all the
doesn't
time,
count.
okay? So, yeah, you're not in this. No, I'm just kidding.
coats.
But the point is like, how many of us have received emails like, hey, Alden, I remember you auditioned for this job, or you sent me this email X amount of time ago, and it's like, we're maybe months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, multiple,
sometimes.
And it's like, we got this job, and you were the one I thought of on this, so I just wanted to see if you're still available. You never know when that seed's going to grow and to start to flower. Yep. And I think if you start, it's kind of like a 401k, right? Like the more you start putting money in at year 1, by year 10, you probably got a crap ton more money than you did in there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good model. That's a good model.
It's an investment of your time, and it doesn't take any time to do. Well, I say it doesn't take any time. It doesn't take a lot of time or effort. I mean, give yourself 2 to 3 hours a day just to do some marketing or whatever, or figure out how to automate it if you so choose to do that, and spend a lot of time up front, and then let it go and let itself do its work. Gosh, that was hard to say.
Yeah. No,
I love what you're saying, even though it ended weird.
Yeah.
When you said 2 hours, Jacob,
Yeah.
like for us, like we understand, right? 2 hours to focus on one task or whatever in voiceover is like nothing to us because that's what we do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right,
I could see if I was brand new listening and be like, oh my gosh, I got to do, that's going to take 2 hours.
I got my
And
job.
then it's like
I've
this.
got my family.
And then
I
it's
got my
like,
chores,
I got this,
whatever.
or
That's
even if they're
that
kind
way.
of, or even if they're kind of all into VO, they're just not used to that. Like, okay, it's going to take me this much time to do auditions, or like it's going to take me this much time to do marketing, or it's going to be this much time to do research. Oh wow, I spent 3 hours on Facebook talking about voiceover stuff, but just it wasn't really relevant to me, but it was more just like commenting on things because they wanted to feel like they were doing something, that something is happening, because they know that if I do this, then that's going to feel like I did something.
People, yeah, and I get that. But here's something to consider too. Like, you're not going to start marketing if you've never marketed before. You are not going to start marketing tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to look and test some things, like see what works for you. How you want to figure out where you want to lead the people you're marketing to. You got to find the people to market to. It's just not going to happen like that. So there's no rush to start, but there is a rush to at least get started, if that makes sense. Like, get started and do it minimally. I mean, like if you don't have 2 hours in a day to do something right now, start small. Give yourself 15 minutes. Like, what did I do today in 15 minutes? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it'll all build together.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Your
It'll add up.
your knowledge and your experience and your skills as a voice actor will build, and your ability to market will build. And I think that's why it all comes together down the road, because it takes sometimes, like you were saying, Jake, 2 years before somebody reaches back out. So if you start marketing now and it's not coming to fruition for a couple of years, well, look, you look at it the positive way. I got a couple of years to train my voice acting chops, you know, and that's why this thing is not a quit your job, jump in and you'll make a living.
This is a long game. This is a
It
long
is.
game.
It really
You know what I mean?
100%.
Nobody, you know,
Any
how many
investment
people
is a long game.
and how many people leave, I'll use Tennessee for an example. They leave Tennessee and move to L.A. and they're going to be in the movies. How many of them go out
People
there
leave
and
every
tuck
state
tail
to
and
go
come
to
home?
LA to be in the
Yeah,
movies.
exactly.
And how many of them come back?
How many make it?
Almost
and it's
all of
and
them. Not
we
the
had
whole
this
way. Come back, I mean,
discussion.
not make it.
Delaware to be in the movies.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
had
I
this.
was
We
gonna
had
say,
this
who leaves
discussion.
Made that up.
Springfield,
That's a
Missouri to
made-up
go to LA
statistic.
and become an actor. I'm like, oh, Brad Pitt. That's right.
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
We had
Sorry,
this
Troy.
discussion
John Goodman.
last year when my son
Or is he from
was
St. Louis?
he was playing football and got a scholarship to some little school and you know, but he ended up not going, and I was afraid the conversation we had may have took him off of it, because I printed this off of a site what the stats were on a high school player getting a scholarship to college, and the stats on them starting and playing in college, and then the stats on them getting drafted in the NFL, and it goes like down to about 0.2%.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You know,
yeah.
so you can't put your eggs in that basket. You better go to a good school and get an education, do everything you can for that. But it's the same way with this. You do all the other stuff, do what you got to do. Yeah, the chances are lower and people fall out. But if you do this and do this right, chances are pretty good you can make a little money and a living.
That's
Yeah,
the thing.
yeah.
There is a misconception that like anybody that's in entertainment, anybody that's in sports, or anybody that you hold in regard of like that's something that you would consider doing when you got older, kind of thing, that maybe it's out of reach just because it is at the professional level. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you jump into like when I got into acting back in 2010, I started seeing people I was seeing in commercials and TV at auditions right away. And people I had seen growing up on television, I'd see at the same audition I was at. And it was like, oh, wait, I'm auditioning against these people. First of all, I would think like, well, I'm definitely not getting this, but at the same time, I'm also like, but they're doing exactly what I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's a process, like we've said multiple times. But once you decide to jump in, you know, in a good way, in a healthy way, in a way where you're taking your time to get coaching, taking your time to learn how to do this, how to do your marketing and stuff like that. Like it's fairly easy to at least come in contact with these people, but then you have to decide what to do with that opportunity. Do you try to learn from them? Or do you try to go your own way? I mean, it's up to you, honestly. I would suggest trying to learn from them because obviously they've done something right before. But I'm not saying don't be yourself either. You know, like you've got to be yourself because that's about being authentic and whatnot. So, But these things that look so unobtainable or look like, oh man, I would never I don't think I would ever talk to anybody of that caliber. That's not a true thing. I mean, like, if you want to get involved in something, do it, and you'd be surprised who you meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who you rub elbows with, who you find yourself talking to at a breakfast table before the conference starts. Sometimes, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It can become a very level playing field at a certain point. And then it becomes, like we were talking about before, all the subjective stuff that goes on the other side. We were talking about the differences, in how many, well, I won't say differences, how many people double book or get booked for the same product over and over. Like, you take a guy like Will Arnett, and he's done Reese's for years.
Oh, yeah.
But look how many times they've changed voices for Chevy Silverado and Dodge Ram and a lot of these things. Even Ford, Bryan Cranston and Ryder are doing a lot of that now. But look how they change a lot of times where somebody's going to have an at-bat, and you may have a shot at that. You never know with that level playing field out there. So
Yeah, and
don't give up.
And sometimes you listen to a commercial and you're used to this sound. But the company's trying to market a little bit. They're changing their marketing demographic or their age group or their whatever. And now that you hear this voice, and it's like, well, that's not the typical. Whoa,
Is that you, Charles?
that was a big truck.
What did you watch?
Yeah, sorry about that. And now it's a different voice than you're used to, and then you're like, well, shoot, that could have been me. That could have been
Right.
something
You
that I
never
shot
know.
for, but I had this lock in my mind that, it's not going to be, it won't be me, not for this product, not for this line, right? Or not for this, what the company or whatever it is. But the thing is, stuff changes all the time. And I think that's the thing, like you said, Jacob, is we compare ourselves to other people too much.
Big time.
I mean, when we get copy,
it's hard
right?
not to, though, right? Because
Yeah,
you're in the same
it is
industry. You want to
hard
get in
not
that
to,
same industry.
right?
You're like, I want to do something like Ryder does. You know what I mean? I want to be a voice of a car. It's hard not to, right?
Right. It's really hard not to. But it's just like whenever we get copy and in the specs it says touchstones, celebrity touchstones.
Yeah, they give
like
you people
this,
to look
David
at.
Attenborough or
Will
whoever.
Arnett. Like I've seen
whoever it
Bateman,
says.
stuff like that.
Well, and that's the thing. They're not wanting that person.
They want
They're
the
not wanting
attitude.
exactly that. Right? They're wanting maybe that attitude or that feel
That
that
tone,
you
yeah,
get
that
when
they
you
give you.
listen to them speak. So I think we should do the same thing with our peers that we kind of want to be like, right? Or it's like, man, I'd love to do that, but then don't mimic their voice. I think that's what a lot of people try to do is they mimic the voice. And it's
I wonder if
no, you
casting
need
directors,
to,
like when they send those out, they're like, well, let's get ready for a bunch of Will Arnett impressions. Like, you know what I mean?
Hey,
Like,
I just sent one in this morning, and it was celebrity touchdown was David Attenborough, and they said in parentheses, no British accents, please.
they wanted his calm. They wanted his
Yeah, they
subdued,
wanted that feel that you
almost
get
like
when
his
you listen to
wisdom,
him.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right.
Rises.
Yeah.
You need to sound
And
like
that's
an
the thing.
old man.
They want that feel. Like when you listen to, Eddie Murphy talk, or you listen to David Attenborough talk, narrate. It's like that feeling that you get. It's like it's only that feeling with that person, right? They're very particular, and that's the feeling you get. And so you're not really mimicking that person. You're mimicking the emotion that you feel when you listen to that person, because that would be a touchstone, right? That's the touchstone. It's like, okay, maybe kind of like that. That's how we want this spot to feel. So I think we shouldn't be scared, because ultimately, it's 100% the truth. They want you,
Right.
They want you.
Exactly.
Or they would hire whoever.
I've learned that the hard way, because every Matthew McConaughey touchstone I've never got shortlisted or anything on until the other day, and I had heard somebody else on a different podcast was talking about exactly what you just said, and I thought, well, how can it be him and not, how can I do that and not mock him or not try to? And I said, I went and watched something to him, and all he really does, he just talks real quiet. That's all it is. So I recorded my audition really, really quiet, and my voice just really, really quiet, and I got shortlisted.
Yeah, yeah.
So you never know. I mean, and I think exactly
Because
what
that's
you're
the
saying is
feel that
right.
he gives off,
Right.
right?
The
When you
feel,
listen to him,
and you
that's
think about
what you feel.
Attenborough.
quiet,
Attenborough
cool.
is quiet and raspy and a little old, So David Attenborough, you might just want to get a little more of that pop in your throat or whatever.
And like when he talks, I actually watched a couple more videos on him. It's like I already know because I've watched so much stuff with his voice, but I listened again, and it's this weird confidence that he has in his delivery, right? Because he's like, and that's the reason they do this thing. Right, it's like, and it's like, ta da da, haha. See, it's like they had it in the bag the whole time. It's like you just get that feeling, that feeling from it, and it's really the emotion, man.
Yeah.
It's the belief that you get. I know we've talked about it on this show, but in my booth I have a sticky note that I have right here. Emotion generates belief. You have to feel it first. If you feel it, then they feel it. If they feel it, then they believe you. And then if they believe you, your chances of hooking them or getting shortlisted or being hired or whatever grow exponentially. So it's all about that emotion, right? And you have to put the story in your mind, put yourself in that place, immerse yourself in the situation, and then that emotion will naturally come out. And when that emotion naturally comes out, then people believe it, right? And it's like, okay, that's what I want. Now they're hooked, right? Because that emotion came through and it generated that belief, and now they believe that you are the person that's talking about this thing because you are that person. Instead of, here's somebody that's trying to sing-songy these words to make it feel like something, because you could fake a smile. People can tell a fake smile. They'll see it 100 miles away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
Wait,
you can tell when
that's a
somebody's
thing?
genuine. You can tell when somebody's genuinely laughing and happy, or if they're if they're faking it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
We're not going to see his face just then. That was good.
I know what part of the video will go up.
If you are putting yourself in those in David Attenborough, right? If you're not trying to sound like him, but you're trying to feel what he feels when he's presenting.
Yeah.
Right? Then you're acting, and that desperation that you feel is going to be gone.
Yeah. Well, I think we all can agree that one of the things that you have to do to change your attitude, sometimes it's change your environment, and it may be you got to get up, get out for a few minutes, go do something to get your positive vibe back on, then come back in and do the work. Sometimes it's a quick fix. Yeah, a quick fix.
Garden hose.
Yeah, run over a garden hose or two, whatever it takes.
But be careful though. But be careful because maybe you're in that state of mind where you're like, I just got to step away. And then you step away, enjoy the other thing you're doing too much, or worried about like I got to go back and do that thing. And then you don't. And then you've wasted the day, and then you say, I'll start tomorrow fresh.
Not coming back.
I'll do
Right.
I think if
whatever.
you're at that point, if you're finding yourself doing that, you got to ask yourself if this is something you really want to invest your time
Right,
and
sure,
energy into.
sure.
Or do you
And-
have
and-
ADHD?
You know what? And I think there's a lot of
That
people
might
that
be
are
true.
in. I think there's a lot of people that are in voiceover that I think are just they're frustrated with how certain things are going, and I think that I mean they might need to just reevaluate. And it's like if things aren't going your way and you're trying different things, at least try a different area or try something else. And if that's not working, you gotta have a level of self-awareness, man. Like I'm not saying don't go for your dreams and stuff like that, but if the universe and the industry is kind of telling you by the fact that that stuff's not happening.
Yeah.
Stuff's not happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
or at the very least, have something that you can do to make this, so you can pursue this without having to make this really work for you. And if it works, it works. But
okay, and I think the thing you made a really good point because everybody's path is not the same. I don't have to do all these things like this person to be successful right now.
Right.
You can take you could take a while if you need to. Like I think Mandy Fisher said it, Astoria Redhead on on her TikTok post. She's like, nobody can tell you how to make money. Nobody can say you need to do this and you're doing this and this and that. It's like okay, well, I'm doing what I need to do for me and my family and myself, for my own mental health.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so what good are you if you just grind your nose into the grindstone for 2 years, you rip away all your savings, and you're doing all this stuff, and now your family's suffering. You are not the same mom, father, brother, son, whoever to the people around you. You're not the same friend anymore. Like that's not worth it. You know what I mean? You got to do what's right for you. Take the steps you need to do for you. The key is make sure you're taking steps and taking the right steps.
Yeah.
Right? But you got to do it at your own pace because everybody's story is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we never apologize for transparency, folks. You know, we're not trying to run people out of the business or encourage you to stay in when you shouldn't. We're just trying to tell you how it's been for us and experiences we've had.
Things we see, like
Yeah,
out there.
exactly.
Like, we're in so many different Facebook groups and you see it a lot, man. Like, and you see so many different things in so many different aspects where you can just tell it's like if you're in it for this, you probably shouldn't be in it. You know what I mean? Or if things aren't working for you, and like, and people will tell you, man, I've been training for X amount of time and I haven't booked anything, or I haven't done this, and it's like, well, have you tried something different? Or if you have tried something different, then maybe, and it's still not working for you, I mean, maybe it's time for some reevaluation. I mean, man, I definitely don't want to encourage people not to follow discourage people from following their dreams, but at the same time, like, I definitely want to encourage you to be aware, like, and take a look at
You're
yourself.
going to find a lot more success if your expectations live in the world of reality.
Of reality.
You know, of what
said that so
the
nicely.
real world of voiceover is
Didn't
about
he?
and
That was
how
like a
building your
voiceover.
career is. What?
Just the
What?
way you said that was like a voiceover. Is like in the realm of reality.
In the realm of reality. Reality. I don't know how to say it any differently.
This is Alden Schoenberg. Anyway.
But if you have a wrong idea of what the voiceover career and the voiceover world is all about, your expectations are not realistic. They're not going to happen.
Yep.
You know, you're swinging at windmills at that point.
And we say this all the time. If you have any doubt or disbelief in what it's about, go to the novice site and look at the survey. If that does not give you the real picture, nothing in this world will. That is as realistic as it gets.
Yep.
Now,
realistic.
disclaimer, we're not saying do not shoot for the stars. Don't think
right,
no,
don't
of course
dream
not.
big, nothing like that.
We're
But
still
if
shooting
you
for
have,
'em.
If you have that big dream and you're swinging for the stars, that's awesome. But make
You have
sure
to
you're
have
doing
proof.
the right stuff,
Like
putting
that-
putting the steps in the right place, and you are doing the things that you need to do to make that dream come true. Because even if you plan everything out to the T, to the step by step, 100%.
never gonna go
It
there.
is never going to happen like that.
No.
Yeah, you
There
got to
are
be
gonna
prepared to
There are going to be
hike.
tangent factors that are going to determine how fast or slow, no matter what kind of training, prep, this or that you do, right? So,
Yeah,
But
we're
if
not
you have the
discouraging you
belief,
from shooting
if
big
you
for
have
your
the
dreams.
belief that every voiceover artist needs to be Seth MacFarlane, you're living in a different world than reality.
No, and I talked about this a while back. I have built a little tiny base of business at a certain amount, you know, and it's enough to pay the bills and get me by. And of course, my hope is over the next couple years that base will either substantially increase or I'll start booking other stuff that makes the overall increase. It may not happen. And that's when my realization may come. That's as far as I can go. It's all I can do. It's what I'm limited. I invested in the coaching. I did this. I did that. It may or may not happen. I'm in year 4. I've still got, I think another couple of years to make those decisions. But I'm afloat and I'm okay. But would I like to be doing glamorous work that people hear all the time? Sure. But 90% of what I do, nobody hears it. And that's okay.
And
I don't care.
that's not settling. I want people to know that that's not settling. When you understand who you are, you're self-aware, you know that this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm going to do. You don't have to be the $500,000 a year, voiceover person who is doing everything you hear on TV. Be okay with success.
Right.
Be
Any
okay
shape or
with the
form of that.
success you're having.
Right. I agree.
Because if you're not, then you're always going to sound desperate because you're always going to think of yourself as a failure.
Right.
Right. Right.
And also, don't settle for mediocrity.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
don't
not
ever
what I'm
settle for
saying.
mediocrity.
No,
But
yeah,
celebrate,
no, I don't think-
celebrate whatever level your success is.
Yeah.
Hey, your first job's
if
not
you're
going to be
happy with
anything
it, celebrate it.
spectacular. But at the same
certainly
time,
not.
but when you do get that first job, you're still pretty happy and proud about
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Like,
you
I
are.
mean,
Oh, yeah.
like my first job was for a website video for a local school district, and when I remember booking that job, and just like, okay, I think I can do this. And sometimes that's all it takes. And I think that kind of like and that first year was great for me. That first
It
year was
just
great for me.
It blew my mind that my first job was a guy that was at the University of Oregon and wanted his
Poem read, right?
He was a poet and he wanted to hear somebody professionally read his poem. Like he wanted to hear it from somebody else.
He was a poet, and he wanted everyone else to know it.
And here's the crazy part. Like I read his poem, I talked to him about it, right? And I was like, this is kind of what I feel, and like, is this what it's about? And half of it was about right, and then he told me the story behind it, and then I brought the emotion to it, because now I know where he was coming from, what he was, the message he was trying to put out there, and this dude was like almost crying when I was talking to him,
Wow.
right? And he was just like, oh, it means so much to me, right? And he's like, and it was so, wow, it was just so great as an artist, he said, to hear my work, through somebody else. And to hear that not from me reading it or, writing it or hearing myself record it. And $4, dude. $4. And I was just like, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, like I'm a voice actor. I was just like, oh my gosh, somebody paid me $4 money, actual money to
can buy
read
some-
something. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Buy a
And,
10-piece right now.
Yeah, I know,
Look at him
right?
now. Guys, we better wrap it up. We've been at it a while. I know you
Yeah.
guys have got stuff going on this
Yeah, I gotta
afternoon.
Certainly.
jump on an email booking. So
Yeah, let's hear it some more.
Hey, thanks guys for joining in. We'll be back next week with another episode, I'm quite sure. And any parting advice for everybody? All I'll say is, if you want it, don't quit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't quit,
All these
but-
nuggets that were dropped, I'm going to have to listen again just so I can take notes.
so the last closing word for me. I read a Facebook post today, and somebody was talking about, sometimes the summer months get a little bit slower, and they're like, take that time to go on vacation with your family. Go someplace for a day or two.
Yeah.
And
Go
come back
someplace
ready
a
for the
weekend.
fall.
Come back ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess my closing thing is just take care of yourself mentally,
Yep.
physically.
Yeah.
Be cool with don't let this thing that you're trying to achieve affect your family, friends in a negative way, that life in a negative way, right? Because we always want it to be a positive thing, and it will be. So don't get too discouraged when all the chips aren't landing exactly how you want it, because that's just the VO, the life in the VO world, right?
Yeah.
And be you because nobody else can.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Remember, I love you.
I don't know. When you said that, I thought Barney.
Oh
so-
no, that is a whole nother podcast. I'm ready to talk
There, I
about.
ruined
Just
it
kidding.
by Jake.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Adios.
Later, dudes.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of It's Another VO Podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. You can also email us your questions to anothervopodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at Another VO Podcast. See you next time.